The first time I heard the words, "I just used your card for snacks, Aunt Vivian. Hope that's cool," I thought Tyler was joking. He was sitting at my dining table, legs slouched, phone glowing in his hands, his teenage face illuminated by the screen. It was late evening, the kind of quiet when the city hum outside softens but the smell of roasted garlic still lingers in your kitchen. I had just come home from a 12-hour day, my blazer still clinging to the scent of subway rails and stale coffee. I wanted nothing more than to pour a glass of wine and melt into silence. Instead, I froze in place. "What card, Tyler?" I asked, though my stomach had already started to twist. "The one in your blue wallet," he said without even looking up. "Relax, it was just $20, some chips and soda." My heart dropped. My blue wallet wasn't just a wallet, it was the vault. My main checking account, my primary credit card, the same one I used for business expenses. The thought of anyone, especially a 14-year-old, touching it without permission made my throat close. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Tyler, you know you're not supposed to go through my things. How did you even get it?" He shrugged, a lazy roll of the shoulders. "It was on the counter. Chill, Aunt Vive, it's not like I robbed a bank." But in that moment, it felt exactly like a robbery. When I pulled out my phone and checked my banking app, my breath caught in my chest. It wasn't $20. It wasn't even 200. It was thousands. My fingers trembled as I scrolled. $499.99 here, $300 there, dozens of charges to online gaming platforms, clothing stores, food deliveries. The numbers blurred into one monstrous figure, $8,200. My skin turned cold. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I looked at Tyler. He was still scrolling, earbuds dangling from his neck, completely unfazed. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, a glitch, some kind of hack. But then his eyes flickered, just for a second, guilt breaking through the nonchalance. "Tyler," I whispered, "did you do all this?" Silence, then, maybe the card got hacked or something. I kept staring and he squirmed. Finally, he muttered, "Okay, maybe I bought a few things, but I didn't think it would be that much. Games make it too easy, you just click and it charges. Not my fault they don't warn you." $8,200. 3 months' worth of my mortgage. The emergency savings I'd fought to build after years of grinding in a world where every cent mattered. And my nephew, the boy I'd let live in my home out of compassion for my struggling sister, had drained it in less than 48 hours. When Stephanie finally came home later that night, designer shopping bag swinging from her arm, I was waiting with the evidence spread across the table. "Tyler used my card," I told her. "He spent over $8,000. For one brief second, her smile cracked. Then she tossed her keys into the bowl by the door and shrugged. "Kids will be kids, Vivian. You can just dispute the charges with the bank, right?" I felt slapped. My own sister, the woman who had begged me to give her and her son a place to stay after her divorce and job loss, brushed it off like it was spilled milk. "No, Stephanie," I said, my voice shaking. "This isn't normal, this is theft." She waved a hand dismissively. "You make plenty, he's just a teenager, don't overreact." But I couldn't unsee the truth. I wasn't living with a sister and her son anymore. I was living with two people who thought my life, my effort, my boundaries meant nothing. That night, lying awake in the darkness of my bedroom, I realized something bone deep. This wasn't just about money, it was about respect. Trust. The years of little thefts, excuses, manipulations, all crashing into one unbearable truth. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something had to change. But to understand why that moment hit me like a freight train, you need to know the story of how my sister and I became two women on opposite sides of the same life. I grew up in Massachusetts, the daughter of two parents who preached responsibility like it was religion. My father worked double shifts at a factory, hands always cracked from labor, while my mother ran the house with military precision. Every dollar mattered. If I wanted new sneakers, I babysat the neighbor's kids. If I wanted a prom dress, I picked up extra hours at the local diner. I learned early, money didn't grow on trees. Stephanie learned something else. She was only a year younger, but it was as if we were raised in different households. Where I saw limits, she saw loopholes. Where I felt shame in asking for handouts, she felt entitlement. Teachers, relatives, friends, she could charm them all into helping her out. Growing up, I became the responsible one, the one who knew better, the one our parents leaned on. Stephanie was the free spirit. I resented it, but I also pitied her. That pity would one day become my biggest weakness. By the time we hit our 20s, the gap between us widened. I worked 3 jobs after college to pay off my student loans, building a career as a financial advisor. Every sleepless night felt like an investment in my future. Stephanie floated through part-time jobs, quick romances, and constant financial crises. Vive, can I borrow $500 for car repairs? I'll pay you back Friday. Vive, I'm short on rent this month, just $800. You know I'll make it up to you. Vive, can you help with this apartment deposit? It's only $2,000. I promise this time I'll get it together. Promises never materialized. I stopped keeping track after the total passed $10,000. And then, after her messy divorce, the spiral quickened. Designer handbags she couldn't afford, the latest iPhone, Tyler with brand new gaming consoles and sneakers, even when bills piled up. I'd offer to help her budget, but she'd roll her eyes. We only live once, Vive. I want Tyler to have what I didn't. The problem wasn't just money, it was her parenting. No boundaries, no discipline. If Tyler wanted it, he got it. Period. Still, when she called me sobbing one night, saying she and Tyler had nowhere to go, I couldn't turn them away. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was helping family. But what I really did was open the door to betrayal. For the first few weeks, things seemed manageable. I set rules: a separate shelf in the fridge for their groceries, no entering my office, no touching my wallet or personal documents. Stephanie nodded, Tyler shrugged. But cracks showed quickly. My expensive face wash disappeared from the bathroom. My sweaters appeared in Stephanie's closet. Small amounts of cash vanished from my desk drawer. When I confronted them, Stephanie laughed. Relax, Vive, we're family, stop being so uptight. Family, the word was her shield. The word she used to excuse every theft, every broken boundary, every disappointment. But that night, starring at $8,200 in unauthorized charges, Stephanie's dismissive shrug echoing in my ears, I knew the shield was gone. This wasn't family, this was exploitation. And I was done being their target. The glass of wine I'd longed for sat untouched on the counter as I sat in the dark, the glow of my laptop screen burning my tired eyes. I combed through every transaction, every charge, some pending, some processed. The pattern was unmistakable. Tyler hadn't just taken my card on a whim. He'd tested me with small purchases first, a few snacks, fast food, then escalated, emboldened each day, until the spending became reckless, deliberate, monstrous. And the sickening realization struck: he wasn't alone. Stephanie had known. The designer bag on the counter, the food deliveries to my apartment when I was at work, the salon charges, she had benefited from the theft. She had encouraged it. My sister and her son hadn't just stolen my money, they had stolen my trust. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I made a decision, one that would change everything. Because if my sister thought I would keep protecting her, she had no idea who she was dealing with. If you've ever had a sibling, you know the silent comparisons that trail you like shadows. One becomes the smart one, the other the wild one. One gets praised for responsibility, the other for charm, and if you're not careful, those roles stick long after childhood ends. For me and Stephanie, those roles were carved deep. I was the firstborn, the planner, the one who stayed up late with flashcards, who cleaned the kitchen before Mom asked, who saved my allowance in a glass jar hidden under my bed. Stephanie was the whirlwind. She was laughter at midnight, sneaking out windows, batting her eyes at teachers to get extensions on homework. If I was the storm shelter, she was the lightning bolt, dazzling, dangerous, unpredictable. Vivian, you know better, my parents would say whenever we fought. You're older, you should set the example. And when Stephanie broke rules, she's just young, she'll grow out of it. She never did. One memory still burns in my mind. I was 15, Stephanie 14. Our father had been saving for months to buy Mom a new sewing machine. Every overtime shift, every dollar pinched from groceries, it went into a coffee can hidden at the back of his closet. One Saturday morning, I overheard my parents whispering in the kitchen. The can was empty, gone. Stephanie sat at the table with a smug look, a brand new leather jacket draped over her shoulders. Mom's voice shook. "Stephanie, where did you get that?" She twirled a strand of hair. "A friend gave it to me." But later that night, I caught her stuffing receipts into the trash, clothing store receipts. The total almost exactly what had been in the can. I confronted her. "You stole Dad's money." She smirked. "It's not stealing, it's borrowing, I'll pay it back someday. Besides, he works too hard, he won't even miss it." That was the first time I realized Stephanie's worldview was different. To her, money wasn't something earned, it was something owed. Fast forward a decade, and nothing had changed. At 25, I was juggling 3 jobs: financial firm assistant by day, restaurant hostess by night, babysitter on weekends. Every shift left me bone tired, but when I made that final student loan payment, I cried tears of pride. Stephanie, she was living with a boyfriend who paid her rent. When the relationship soured, she called me, crying, "Vive, I need $600 to get out of here. Please, you're the only one I can trust." I sent the money, she never repaid it. It became a pattern: $500 here, $800 there. Always urgent, always temporary, always a promise dangling like a carrot she never intended to deliver. "Vivian," she'd say sweetly, "you're so responsible, you always have money, I'm not as strong as you, help me just this once." And every time, against my better judgment, I helped, because I was the responsible one, because I thought enabling was compassion. Then came Tyler. When he was born, I swore things would be different. I would be the fun aunt, the safe place, the one who gave him the stability Stephanie couldn't. But even as a toddler, the patterns showed. He threw tantrums in toy aisles, and Stephanie caved instantly. "Fine, fine, you can have it, just stop crying." At 7, he borrowed money from Mom's purse to buy candy. Stephanie laughed. "He's just a kid, don't be so dramatic." At 10, he smashed a neighbor's window with a baseball. Stephanie paid the man off and told Tyler, "Don't worry, baby, accidents happen." Boundaries didn't exist in Stephanie's world. And without boundaries, Tyler grew like a tree bending toward chaos. Still, I loved him. How could I not? He was my nephew, bright and witty and endlessly curious. When Stephanie was busy chasing jobs or men, I'd sit with him for hours. He'd ask me about how money worked, why some people were rich and others poor, how I saved enough to buy my condo. "You're so smart, Aunt Vive," he'd say. "I want to be like you when I grow up." I believed him. I believed he had potential. What I didn't see was how Stephanie's voice was shaping him louder than mine ever could. 6 months before the $8,200 theft, Stephanie had called me in tears again. "They're evicting us, Vive. I have nowhere to go. Please let us stay with you, just until I get back on my feet." I hesitated. My condo was my sanctuary, my one accomplishment I'd fought tooth and nail for, but what kind of sister would I be if I turned them away? When they moved in, I set clear rules. My office is off limits, my bedroom too. My wallet, purse, and financial documents are never to be touched. Stephanie rolled her eyes. "God, you're so uptight." Tyler grinned. "Don't worry, Aunt Vive, I'm not interested in your boring papers." But boundaries in my house became as fragile as paper walls. One night, I came home to find Tyler wearing my noise-canceling headphones. Another time, Stephanie strutted into the living room in my blouse. And then there were the small disappearances. A 20 from my purse, my favorite pen, even a bottle of wine. Each time I confronted them, Stephanie's response was the same. "We're family, Vivian. Stop making everything a big deal." Family, the word was a weapon in her mouth. The irony is, I help strangers for a living. Clients trust me with their retirements, their life savings, their futures. They respect my discipline. But at home, with my own blood, I let myself be manipulated. Why? Because guilt is a powerful chain. Because every time I thought of throwing them out, I saw a younger version of Stephanie, my kid sister, the one our parents always said needed more patience, more compassion. And because Tyler looked at me with those wide eyes, asking questions about stocks and savings, making me believe maybe, just maybe, I could be a positive influence. But influence without consequences is useless. I learned that too late. I still remember the night, 2 months into their stay, when I helped Stephanie organize her finances. Her bills were stacked in teetering piles, unopened envelopes with red letters screaming final notice, credit cards maxed out, rent arrears. I spent the entire weekend sorting, setting up autopay, building her a budget spreadsheet. "You're a lifesaver, Vive," she said, hugging me. "I don't know what I'd do without you." For the first time, I felt hope. Maybe this was the turning point. Maybe my sister could finally learn responsibility. So when she asked me to add her as an authorized user on one of my credit cards, for emergencies only, Vive, I swear, I said yes. That yes would come back to haunt me. Looking back now, I can see the red flags waving like carnival banners. Tyler's casual way of testing boundaries. Stephanie's dismissive shrugs whenever I confronted her. The subtle entitlement in every word, every action. But at the time, I told myself family deserved chances. I told myself I was building trust. The truth, I was building the perfect setup for betrayal. That Wednesday in April, the night Tyler confessed to just snacks, wasn't an accident. It wasn't even impulsive. It was the culmination of years of small thefts, years of excuses, years of me choosing loyalty over truth. Tyler had been experimenting for days, making smaller charges to see if I'd notice. Stephanie had been nodding along, reaping the benefits of free deliveries and salon trips. They didn't stumble into theft, they planned it, they normalized it. And when I finally confronted Stephanie, her shrug wasn't ignorance. It was admission. It was her saying, "Yes, Vivian, we steal from you, and we expect you to accept it because that's what family does." But sitting in my kitchen with the receipts spread out, the smell of her new leather purse still sharp in the air, something in me broke. For the first time in my life, I stopped seeing Stephanie as my baby sister. I saw her as what she had become, a woman who would sacrifice her own son's integrity for material comfort. And Tyler, my sweet nephew, was becoming a mirror of her. That realization terrified me. Because if I didn't do something, if I didn't finally put my foot down, I wouldn't just lose money. I'd lose Tyler. He'd grow into a man who thought theft was normal, excuses were currency, and responsibility was optional. And I couldn't let that happen. The morning after I discovered the $8,200 theft, sunlight filtered through my blinds like needles. I hadn't slept. My eyes burned from scrolling bank statements all night, documenting each transaction like wounds on a body. The numbers haunted me: $499.99, $289, $1,200. Each one a stab of betrayal. Coffee brewed in the kitchen, its bitter scent barely cutting through the knot in my stomach. I could hear Tyler laughing faintly from the guest room, his gaming headset crackling. The sound, once harmless, now grated like nails on glass. Stephanie shuffled into the kitchen wearing my robe. My robe. She yawned, poured herself a mug, and sat across from me as if nothing had happened. "We need to talk," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "About what?" I slid the printed statements toward her. She skimmed them, lips pursed, then sighed. "Vive, it's not that serious. Banks forgive charges all the time, just call them, say it wasn't you." "That would be fraud," I snapped. "This was Tyler, he stole from me, and you knew." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't accuse me of." "Don't lie," I cut in, slamming my palm on the table. "The food deliveries, the salon charges, you think I don't recognize them?" Stephanie's mask slipped for a second, then she rolled her eyes. "God, you're so dramatic, you have money, we don't. Stop acting like the victim." I leaned forward, voice low and shaking. "I let you live here for free. I set boundaries you ignored. I trusted you, and you repaid me with theft. Do you have any idea what that feels like?" She crossed her arms. "It feels like you're being selfish." The word hit me like ice. Selfish. For years, I'd sacrificed to help her. Now, because I demanded accountability, I was selfish. I stormed down the hall and knocked on Tyler's door. No answer. I pushed it open. He sat hunched over his laptop, the glow of an online gaming platform reflected in his wide eyes. My heart sank when I saw the shopping cart on screen, $200 worth of virtual items waiting for purchase. Tyler, I said, turn it off. He froze, his fingers hovered, then slowly closed the laptop. You're still using my card, aren't you? His face flushed. I was gonna tell you, I just wanted to finish the set. I grabbed the laptop and his phone. Scrolling through, I found them. Photos of my credit cards, front and back, saved in a hidden folder. I felt bile rise in my throat. Where did you learn to do this? I demanded. He looked at the floor. Mom said. Stephanie's voice thundered down the hall. Don't you dare, Tyler. But he whispered anyway, eyes wet. Mom said it was fine, that you wouldn't even notice, that you owed us. The words cracked something inside me. When I returned to the kitchen, Stephanie was packing, phone in hand. You had no right to take his laptop. He's a kid. He's not just a kid, I snapped. He's stealing and you're letting him. Stephanie slammed her mug down so hard coffee sloshed over the rim. We're family, Vivian. Family helps each other. Do you have any idea what it's like raising a kid alone? No husband, no money, no one but you judging me. You think this is about judgment, I shouted. This is about raising your son to believe theft is okay. Do you want him arrested someday? Because that's where this path leads. Her face hardened. If you call the cops, you'll regret it. It wasn't a threat of violence. It was worse, a threat of guilt. She knew I'd never forgive myself if Tyler ended up in the system because of me. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I realized I was trapped in a prison of loyalty. My sister, my nephew, my blood. But blood was poison if it taught you to betray yourself. For hours I wrestled with questions that burned like acid. Do I protect my nephew from consequences and risk him never learning right from wrong? Do I report him and tear my family apart forever? Do I keep enabling Stephanie because I fear being alone? Somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m., I opened my laptop again. I scrolled through Tyler's browsing history. He had searched, can minors get in trouble for using credit cards? He knew. By morning, my decision was clear. I froze all my cards, changed passwords, removed Stephanie as an authorized user. I even accessed her accounts, the ones I'd helped her set up months ago. What I found made my stomach churn. Transfers from Tyler's payment app to her checking account. My money funneled to her disguised as repayments. She wasn't just complicit, she was orchestrating. I placed a temporary freeze on her accounts too. At 7 a.m., the sound of her scream jolted me awake. What do you mean my account is frozen? She shrieked into the phone. I stepped into the kitchen, robe tied tight. Tyler sat pale-faced at the table. Stephanie turned on me, eyes blazing. Did you do this? Yes, I said calmly, I did. Her voice cracked. You had no right. I set a stack of evidence on the counter. Actually, I had every right, because it's my money you stole. Tyler shifted, eyes brimming. Mom, just tell her the truth. Stephanie's face went white. Shut up, Tyler. But it was too late. I took the pictures of your cards because Mom told me to, he confessed, tears spilling. She said you wouldn't care. She said we deserved it. The room fell silent. Stephanie's mask shattered. I stared at her, my sister, my blood, and realized the truth I'd avoided my whole life. She wasn't careless. She wasn't unlucky. She was a thief. And she'd turned her son into one too. The kitchen that morning was a battlefield. Coffee mugs half spilled on the counter, my printed statements scattered like shrapnel, Stephanie packing with fury in her eyes, and Tyler shrinking in his chair as if the walls were closing in. When he whispered that confession, Mom told me to take pictures of your cards. I felt the ground tilt beneath me. Stephanie lunged, pointing a finger at him. Don't you dare lie to her, Tyler. But he didn't flinch. I'm not lying. You said Aunt Vive had more than enough, that it was fair if we used some. His voice cracked, but his eyes stayed steady. And in that moment, I realized he wasn't just confessing to me, he was begging me to make it stop. Stephanie's face drained of color. You little. Stop, I barked, stepping between them. My pulse thundered in my ears. You will not scream at him for telling the truth. She spun on me, trembling with rage. You're tearing us apart, we had an understanding, Vive. Family takes care of family. No, I said, my voice low but unshakable. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't teach a child that crime is survival. The argument escalated like a storm breaking glass. You've always thought you were better than me, Stephanie shouted, her fists balled. The golden child, the one with the career and the condo. Well, I'm sorry I don't live up to your perfect standards. I slammed my hand on the table. This isn't about standards. It's about you manipulating your son into theft and dragging me into your chaos. Tyler covered his ears, rocking slightly, his voice small. Please stop. But neither of us stopped. Decades of resentment exploded all at once. You've looked down on me since we were kids, she hissed. Dad always praised you, Mom always compared me to you. I had nothing, you had everything. That's a lie and you know it, I fired back. I worked for everything I have. Every dollar, every hour, every sleepless night, I earned it. And you, my voice cracked, you've been stealing from me since we were teenagers. The words were poison finally expelled, and for a heartbeat, silence fell. Then Stephanie lunged forward, knocking the papers to the floor. You're selfish, heartless, we needed this money more than you ever will. The shriek rattled the room, and then, like a scene in slow motion, her hand swung. The slap wasn't hard enough to knock me down, but the sting burned across my cheek like fire. For a moment, time froze. Tyler gasped, his chair scraping back against the tile. My heart hammered so violently I thought it might tear from my chest. You hit me, I whispered. Stephanie's eyes widened, as if even she couldn't believe what she'd done, then her face hardened. You pushed me to it. The words sank like a stone in deep water. She didn't regret it, she justified it. Before I could respond, Tyler bolted from the room, his sneakers pounding down the hall. Seconds later, the front door slammed. Tyler, I shouted, racing after him. I burst into the hallway just in time to see him sprinting toward the stairwell, his face streaked with tears. Wait, I cried. But he didn't wait. He flew down the stairs, skipping steps, his sobs echoing in the stairwell. Then, a thud, a sickening crack. Tyler, my scream tore from my throat as I raced downward. He lay crumpled at the bottom of the stairs, groaning, clutching his arm. His face was pale, his breathing shallow. Don't move, I whispered, dropping to my knees. My hands shook as I dialed 911. Please, we need an ambulance, my nephew, he fell. Stephanie's footsteps thundered behind me. When she saw him, her face twisted in horror. Oh my God, Tyler, she shoved past me, kneeling beside him. But when she looked up at me, her eyes were filled not with guilt, but accusation. This is your fault, she spat. You drove him out. My fault. The sirens wailed in the distance, closer, closer, until the stairwell filled with flashing red. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Tyler was rushed into imaging for x-rays, his arm bent unnaturally, his face pinched with pain. Stephanie hovered like a mother lion, snapping at every nurse, shooting daggers at me. I sat in the waiting room, my heart pounding in my ears, the sting of her slap still tingling on my cheek. Families shuffled around us, crying children, weary parents, the hum of machines, and all I could think was how quickly love had curdled into violence. A doctor emerged, clipboard in hand. Stephanie leapt up. How is he? Your son has a fractured radius, the doctor explained. Clean break. We'll set the bone and put him in a cast. He's lucky it wasn't worse. Stephanie pressed a hand to her chest. Thank God. Then she turned her glare on me. I told you you're toxic. Look what you've done to my boy. I opened my mouth, then closed it. The words wouldn't come. Because how do you argue with someone who twists every shard of truth into a weapon? Hours later, when Tyler was finally wheeled out with his arm in a bright blue cast, his eyes found mine. I'm sorry, he whispered, barely audible. My throat tightened. Don't be sorry, sweetheart, just get better. But Stephanie pulled him close, shielding him from me. Don't listen to her, she's the reason you're here. Her words sliced deep, but Tyler's gaze lingered on me, uncertain, torn. And in that moment, I knew the battle wasn't over money anymore, it was over his soul. That night, back in my condo, the silence was deafening. The empty kitchen table felt like a crime scene. The papers lay scattered where Stephanie had knocked them down, stained with coffee, curled at the edges. The echo of the slap replayed in my mind. The thud of Tyler's body on the stairs, the doctor's voice, clean break, lucky it wasn't worse. I poured a glass of wine, but it tasted like ash. I wasn't just fighting for repayment anymore. I wasn't even fighting for my own dignity. I was fighting for Tyler's future. And I knew, if I didn't act soon, I would lose him to Stephanie's lies forever. Hospitals always smell the same, a cocktail of disinfectant, overcooked cafeteria food, and something colder, metallic, like fear baked into the walls. That night, those smells clung to me as I sat in a hard plastic chair, staring at the white tile floor while Tyler slept behind a curtain. The steady beep of monitors blended with the shuffle of nurses' shoes. I wanted to cry, but my tears had run dry. Instead, I sat frozen, numb, replaying every second that led us here. Tyler bolting out the door, the sickening crack of his fall, Stephanie's shriek, the accusing eyes that said this is your fault. When the doctor came back with the x-rays, he set them on a light board in front of us. The images glowed, a clean fracture running across Tyler's forearm bone, jagged but repairable. This is the radius, he explained, tracing the line with his pen. It's a common fracture in falls like this. We'll need to set it in place and immobilize it with a cast. He'll recover fully with time, but he'll be sore for weeks. Stephanie nodded, squeezing her son's hand, tears streaking her mascara. Thank you, doctor, thank you for saving him. I stood off to the side, arms crossed, the burn of her earlier slap still alive on my cheek. My eyes stayed fixed on the glowing fracture. That line wasn't just a break in Tyler's bone. It was the crack in our family made visible. Hours later, after paperwork and prescriptions, Tyler was resting. His arm was encased in a bright blue cast covered with the hospital's neat black marker. Do not get wet. I leaned closer. Hey kiddo, how are you feeling? He gave me a weak smile. Hurts, but not too bad. Stephanie snapped her purse shut. Don't talk too much, you need rest. But Tyler's eyes found mine again. Aunt Vivian. Yes. His voice was small. I didn't mean to make things so bad. I thought Mom was right. I thought you wouldn't care. The ache in my chest deepened. I care, Tyler. I care more than you know, and I care enough to want you to understand why what happened was wrong. Stephanie cut in sharply. He's a child, Vivian. He doesn't need a lecture right now. He's not a child, I said firmly. He's 14, old enough to know the difference between right and wrong, old enough to know theft has consequences. The words hung heavy in the hospital air. Later, while Stephanie stepped out to take a phone call, I sat by Tyler's bed. His cast gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. My eyes drifted to the folder the nurse had left. Discharge instructions, prescriptions, copies of the x-rays. I slipped them out, tracing the fracture with my finger. Evidence. Proof. A record of what unchecked chaos could do. And it hit me, this wasn't just about money anymore. This was about negligence, about a mother who would rather cover her tracks than protect her son. Tyler stirred. Aunt Vive. Yes, honey. Are you mad at me? The question gutted me. I took his uninjured hand gently. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the choices you made. But mostly, I'm mad that someone told you it was okay to make them. His lip trembled. Mom said it was fine. She said you'd forgive us like you always do. Like I always do, the phrase echoed like a bell of truth. When Stephanie returned, her eyes flicked to the folder in my lap. What are you doing? Reading the discharge papers. She snatched them from me, stuffing them into her purse. That's none of your business. He's my son. I rose slowly, meeting her gaze. He's also my nephew, and when you put him in harm's way, it becomes my business. Her laugh was brittle, desperate. "You're unbelievable. You think you're so perfect. But you don't know what it's like to raise a kid alone. You don't know what it's like to scrape by, to be compared to you every single day of my life." My voice shook, but not from fear. "You're right, I don't know. But I do know this: Tyler deserves better than lies. He deserves a mother who teaches him responsibility, not excuses." Her eyes filled with rage. "You want to take him from me, don't you?" The accusation sliced the air. People in nearby chairs turned their heads. "No," I said quietly. "I want you to wake up before it's too late." Back at home later that night, after Stephanie locked herself in the guest room with Tyler, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by documents. Credit card statements, bank screenshots, the faint image of Tyler's broken bones still glowing in my mind. I lined everything up in neat stacks: evidence of theft, evidence of negligence, evidence of a pattern stretching years. My hands trembled as I opened my laptop and began typing. A letter. A plan. A record that if things went further, no one could say I hadn't tried to stop it. The glow of the screen lit up my tired eyes as words spilled out. Unauthorized charges. $8,200 documented. Evidence of manipulation. Tyler's confession. Medical incident. Tyler's fracture, hospital x-rays, discharge papers. Pattern: years of unpaid debts, excuses, theft disguised as family. Each bullet point was a knife, but each one was necessary. At 3 a.m., as the city outside slept, I whispered to myself, "This ends now." For years I had been the shield, protecting Stephanie from the consequences of her actions. But shields eventually break, and when they do, they become weapons. The next morning, Stephanie emerged from the guest room with her sunglasses on, even though it was cloudy. Her lips were pursed, her tone sharp. "We'll be moving out. Clearly we're not welcome here." Tyler trailed behind her, his blue cast cradled against his chest. He didn't look at me. "You think you're punishing me," I said, voice low, "but you're punishing him." Stephanie scoffed. "Don't be so dramatic, we'll be fine." But I could see it in her eyes, panic. She had nowhere to go. No money, no job, no plan. And for the first time, I wasn't offering a lifeline. That night, when the condo was finally silent, I laid my hand on the table, palm pressed against the wood. My cheek still stung faintly where she'd slapped me. My mind replayed the thud of Tyler's fall, the cold light of his x-ray. This wasn't just my family's drama anymore. This was a case of truth versus denial. And I had evidence on my side. I thought silence would bring me peace. Instead, it pressed down like a suffocating blanket. The condo was heavy with unspoken words, every creak of the floorboards reminding me that Stephanie and Tyler were just down the hall, yet worlds away from me. I wasn't sure what hurt more: the stolen money, the sting of her slap, or the sound of Tyler's voice confessing, "Mom said it was fine." The next morning, I called someone I trusted, Marissa, an old friend who happened to be a family therapist. She had helped several of my clients, children, navigate tough situations. I explained everything in a shaky voice: the theft, the fight, the hospital. Her tone was steady, no judgment. "Vivian, I need to be clear. What you're describing isn't just poor parenting. It's manipulation and emotional abuse. Tyler is caught in the middle, and if someone doesn't intervene, this cycle will define his adulthood." I swallowed hard. So what do I do? Call the police on my own sister? File for custody of my nephew? "First," she said gently, "you confront the truth. Not just to Stephanie, but in front of Tyler. He needs to hear honesty without distortion. If you can, bring me into it. Sometimes a neutral voice forces people to stop deflecting." Her words stayed with me all day, echoing like a bell in my mind. Confront the truth. That evening, I gathered them in the living room. The air smelled faintly of reheated pizza from the box Stephanie had tossed on the counter. Tyler slumped on the couch, his cast propped up on a pillow. Stephanie stood by the window, arms crossed like a fortress. I took a deep breath. "We need to talk, all of us." Stephanie rolled her eyes. "If this is another lecture." "It's not a lecture," I cut in. "It's a line in the sand, and Marissa's joining us." At the mention of her name, Stephanie stiffened. "You called a therapist? Are you kidding me?" Before I could answer, the knock came. When I opened the door, Marissa entered with calm authority, her voice soothing but firm. "Thank you for letting me in. I know this isn't easy." Stephanie groaned. "Oh, perfect. An audience for Vivian's little pity party." But Marissa ignored her. She sat in the armchair, hands folded, eyes kind. "Tyler, how are you feeling?" He glanced nervously at his mother, then whispered, "Okay, I guess." "Does your arm hurt?" she asked. "A little." "And how do you feel about everything else? About what happened with the cards?" His voice cracked. "Bad, really bad. I didn't think it would go so far, I didn't think." He trailed off, staring at the floor. Stephanie jumped in. "See, he's guilty enough already, why drag this out?" Marissa turned to her. "Stephanie, I'll get to you, but right now Tyler needs to finish. Tyler, go on." He swallowed. "I only did it because Mom told me it was fine. She said Aunt Vive had plenty, and it wasn't stealing if she didn't notice." The words hit the air like a hammer. Stephanie flushed red. "That's not true." "Mom," Tyler blurted, tears filling his eyes. "Stop lying, you told me. You even asked me to buy stuff for you with her card." The room fell silent. His voice broke into sobs. "I knew it was wrong, but I wanted you to be proud of me. I wanted you to think I was helping." My heart twisted. I reached out, resting my hand gently on his shoulder. "Oh, honey, you don't ever have to earn love by hurting someone else. Not mine, not anyone's." Stephanie's face contorted. "You've poisoned him against me, Vivian. You're turning him into your puppet." "No," Marissa said firmly. "He's finally telling his truth, and you can't keep dismissing it." Stephanie's voice cracked. "You don't understand. I've been struggling for years while she's had everything handed to her." "Handed to me?" I cut in, trembling with rage. "Do you think 12-hour workdays were handed to me? Do you think paying off student loans with 3 jobs was easy? Nothing was handed to me, Stephanie, nothing." Her eyes flashed. "Well, I didn't have your discipline, okay? I didn't have your strength. I was always the screw-up, the one who never measured up. Do you know how that feels, to be compared to you every single day?" Marissa leaned forward, her voice low but unyielding. "So you took that resentment and made it Tyler's burden. You told him it was okay to steal because it evened the scales. That's not parenting. That's passing down poison." Stephanie flinched as if struck. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Finally, Tyler whispered, "Mom, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to steal. I don't want to lie." Stephanie's lips trembled. "Baby, I just wanted you to have more than I did." "Then teach me to work for it," he said, his young voice trembling with conviction. "Not to take it." Tears blurred my vision. The boy I'd feared was lost, was still in there. Stephanie crumpled onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "I'm a terrible mother." For the first time, her voice wasn't defensive or sharp. It was raw, defeated. "No," Marissa said softly. "You're a mother who made terrible choices, but you can still make different ones." Stephanie looked up at me, eyes rimmed with red. "Do you hate me?" I hesitated, then shook my head. "I don't hate you, I hate what you've done, but hate won't fix this. Only honesty will." Marissa guided us through the next hour, like a conductor, steadying a chaotic orchestra. She made Stephanie admit aloud what she had done. She made Tyler acknowledge his choices too. And she made me confront my enabling, the years I bylaid Stephanie out, thinking I was helping, when all I did was shield her from consequences. When the session ended, we had a plan. Tyler would attend financial literacy classes and contribute to chores as part of rebuilding trust. Stephanie would begin therapy sessions, job counseling, and repayment of the $8,200, even if slowly. I would set clear boundaries: no more handouts, no more unchecked access to my resources. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. After Marissa left, Stephanie sat on the couch in silence, Tyler beside her. His small hand rested on her knee, his cast bright against her black leggings. She whispered, "I don't know if I can change." "You can," I said, "but only if you choose to, every day." Tyler looked between us, his young face etched with hope and fear. "Can we try?" The room was quiet, heavy, but for the first time it wasn't poisoned. It was possible. The days after Marissa's intervention felt like standing on shaky ground, not collapse, but not stability either. I didn't trust Stephanie, not yet. I didn't trust Tyler fully either. But for the first time, I trusted myself. I had drawn a line, I had spoken the truth, and I had refused to carry the burden alone. The first test came quickly. Stephanie applied for a receptionist job at a dental office. She came home nervous, biting her lip. "I probably bombed it," she muttered, tossing her keys onto the counter. "Or maybe you didn't," I said, steady but cautious. A week later, she got the call. She had the job. Her first paycheck was small, but when she handed me the envelope with her portion of repayment, $50, crumpled but real, I nearly cried. "It's not much," she said softly. "It's a start," I replied, and for the first time, her apology felt less like a performance and more like a step. Tyler, too, began his slow climb. He grumbled about chores at first, but he did them. Dishes clattered in the sink, laundry piled but eventually folded. And every Sunday, we sat together at the dining table, notebooks open, working through a financial literacy workbook I'd found for teens. The first time he calculated compound interest on his own, his eyes lit up. "So, money can grow if you use it right." "Yes," I said, smiling. "That's the power of discipline." His cast became a symbol, a physical scar of the chaos we'd survived. Every time he signed it with a new marker, he seemed to recommit to change. One night, weeks later, he showed me something on his laptop, a simple website he had built for a neighbor's flower shop. "I charged them $50, he said, beaming. They loved it." Pride swelled in me. "That's honest money, Tyler, and it feels different, doesn't it?" He nodded, eyes shining. "Yeah, it feels real." Stephanie wasn't a saint overnight. She slipped. There were moments she tried to minimize the past. It wasn't really $8,000 after the refunds, or I only told him to buy small things. Each time, I held my boundary. "No, it was $8,000, and you told him to steal. Don't rewrite the truth." She'd pout, sulk, sometimes storm off. But gradually she stopped, because excuses stopped working on me. That was the biggest shift. Not her, not Tyler, me. I stopped enabling. I stopped softening. I stopped carrying their mistakes as if they were mine. 3 months later, Stephanie surprised me. Over dinner, she cleared her throat, her fork clinking nervously against her plate. "I found an apartment," she said. "Small but decent, close to Tyler's school." I blinked. "You did?" She nodded. "I can afford it with my new salary. Barely, but I think it's time. We need our own space." Relief and sadness collided in me. Relief that my sanctuary would be mine again. Sadness that the little boy with the blue cast, who'd sat at my table with wide eyes, would no longer be just a few feet down the hall. Tyler looked at me nervously. "We'll still come over, right? I can still show you my projects." My throat tightened. "Of course, sweetheart, always." Moving day came faster than I expected. I helped them load their boxes into a borrowed van. Stephanie hugged me, stiff at first, then softer. "I know sorry isn't enough," she whispered. "But I am sorry, Vive, for everything. You were right, I was jealous. And I dragged Tyler down with me." I held her for a moment, then pulled back. "Don't be sorry, be better, that's all I want." Tyler hugged me next, his arms careful around his still-healing cast. "I'm gonna pay you back every dollar," he said with earnest determination, "even if it takes forever." I kissed his forehead. "I believe you." Weeks later, I sat alone at my dining table, the same one where chaos had erupted months earlier. Sunlight streamed through the window. The wood surface still bore a faint coffee stain from the night Stephanie knocked over her mug in rage. I traced the mark with my fingertip. It was a scar, like Tyler's arm, a reminder that damage doesn't disappear but it can heal if you treat it right. Looking back, the money itself almost feels irrelevant. What mattered was the truth behind it. That my sister had been drowning in resentment for years. That my nephew was learning theft instead of responsibility. That my silence and enabling had allowed it all to fester. The scar on my cheek faded. The fracture in Tyler's arm healed. But the deeper wounds, the ones carved by betrayal and denial, are still healing, slowly, with each boundary held, each choice made differently. Do I trust Stephanie completely? No, trust takes years to rebuild. But she's working. She's paying me back in small, consistent amounts. She's showing up to therapy. And she's trying, truly trying, to be the mother Tyler deserves. Do I believe Tyler will grow into the man I once feared he would? Yes, because I see it in his eyes when he shows me the code he writes, the websites he builds, the pride he feels in honest work. And as for me, I've learned the hardest, most liberating lesson of all. Love without accountability isn't love, it's surrender. So if you're watching this, maybe you've faced something similar. Maybe you've been the responsible one, the one everyone leans on, the one who always forgives. Maybe you've carried guilt that wasn't yours to carry. Here, what I want you to know. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is stop protecting them from consequences. It hurts, it feels cruel, but it can save them and it can save you too. What about you? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family, to choose truth over loyalty? Did it break you, or did it set you free? Share your story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more real stories about family, betrayal, and the hard lessons that change us forever. Because sometimes, the people who break your heart are the very ones who teach you how to heal.